Welcome back to Us Mint Mysteries. Today, we're diving deep into the world of Lincoln pennies, and I'm telling you right now, what you're about to see might just change the way you look at pocket change forever. These aren't your average copper cents. Some of these ordinary-looking coins could be hiding life-changing value, sitting quietly in your collection, or even in a forgotten jar at home. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for, and just maybe, you'll discover a small fortune of your own. So if you love uncovering rare US coins and hidden treasures from the mint, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now, because trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Now let's begin with our first coin, the 1968 Lincoln penny. At first glance, it looks like any other old cent you might find at the bottom of a drawer or tucked away in an old coffee can. But take a closer look, because this unassuming little coin has shocked collectors more than once, especially when it appears in extra fine condition. Just like the one you see here, the 1968 penny carries more mystery than most realize. It was struck during a time of transition. The US Mint had just removed the mint mark from coins in 1965, and by 1968, those tiny letters returned, D for Denver, S for San Francisco, and sometimes, none at all for Philadelphia. What many don't know is that 1968's proof pennies and certain Denver-struck circulation coins came out with subtle, but powerful errors: double dies, misaligned mint marks, and variations in the thickness of the lettering. These differences may seem small, but in the world of coin collecting, they can mean the difference between 1 cent and a small fortune. Now imagine holding a 1968 penny that gleams with nearly all its original copper luster, sharp edges, and crisp detail around Lincoln's profile. That's what extra fine means. It still has the texture and brilliance that most coins of its age lost decades ago. And that's exactly what makes this one so special. You can still see the fine detail in Lincoln's beard, the boldness of the date, and that iconic "In God We Trust" standing proud across the top. Here's where things get exciting. A 1968's Lincoln penny with a strong double die obverse, meaning the date and lettering are doubled, once sold for over $30,000 in near perfect condition. Even the circulated versions with that same doubling have brought in several $1,000s at auction. Collectors are obsessed with these subtle errors because they capture a tiny moment of human imperfection in the mint's long history. But even without an error, a 1968 Lincoln penny in extra fine condition can surprise you. Clean, well-preserved examples, especially those with rich, red copper tone and minimal marks, have been valued between $150 and $450, depending on grading and toning. Step it up to uncirculated red examples, and you're looking at $1,000 to $3,000. And if you happen to find a proof strike or rare error version hiding in your collection, the value can skyrocket well beyond $25,000, and in some reported private sales, even past $40,000. That's right, a single penny worth more than a brand new car. Hard to believe, but it's true. So, how can you tell if your 1968 penny could be the one? Start by checking under good lighting. Focus on the date and the word liberty. If you see even the slightest doubling or an off-centered strike, your heart might just skip a beat. Look for that San Francisco mint mark, the tiny S, especially one that appears crooked or faint. Those are the kind of details collectors chase like hidden treasure. The story behind these coins connects us to a fascinating era in US mint history. The late 1960s were filled with experimentation and mechanical inconsistencies as mints adjusted to new processes. Every coin struck during that time carries a fingerprint of that change, and sometimes, those fingerprints turn out to be worth a fortune. So, before you cash in that jar of old pennies, take one more look. That 1968 cent might not just be copper, it could be your ticket to something truly unbelievable. Next up, we've got a coin that hides one of the most surprising stories in the entire Lincoln series, the 1963 Lincoln penny. Now, before you scroll past thinking, "Oh, that's just another common wheat era cent," stop right there, because this one might just blow your mind. The 1963 penny was struck in the final full year before America said Goodbye to the beloved wheat. Reverse design, a design that had defined the Lincoln cent for over half a century. Denver struck more than 1.7 billion of them that year. Yes, billion with a B. But here's the twist. Even with such massive numbers, certain 1963 pennies have stunned collectors with shocking values, especially when preserved in extra fine or red uncirculated condition. Picture this: the coin gleaming softly, the deep copper tone still alive, with Abraham Lincoln's portrait showing only the faintest touch of wear on his cheek and jawline. That's the kind of coin serious collectors dream about finding, especially when the surfaces remain smooth and the strike sharp. And if your 1963 penny looks anything like that, well, don't let it go. You see, during that period, the Denver Mint was running at full capacity. The presses were moving fast, and small imperfections began slipping through. That's when we see the occasional die clash, ray-punched mint marks, and even double die obverses that were never meant to exist. A few of these rare varieties have made their way into collections and auctions, where prices quickly jumped from a few dollars to staggering sums. One particularly sharp 1963 penny with a bold double die obverse and ray-punched D mint mark was once graded by PCGs at near perfection, and that tiny cent sold for over $25,000. That's $25,000 for a single penny. Most people wouldn't even glance at twice. Now, if you have one in extra fine condition, with that strong reddish copper tone and sharp rim definition, you're already in rare company. Such examples often fetch $150 to $500, and uncirculated red specimens can go for $2,000 to $6,000, sometimes more, if they exhibit a dramatic die error. But here's where it gets jaw-dropping. Certain pristine, full red examples graded Ms. 67 or higher have been auctioned for more than $40,000, and private sales have even whispered numbers touching the $75,000 mark. It's almost unbelievable. A coin that once bought a stick of gum now worth more than a luxury watch. But what makes it truly fascinating is its place in history. The 1963 penny was minted at the end of an era, a final farewell to the wheat reverse, right before the mint introduced the Lincoln Memorial design in 1959. It's like a time capsule of American change, sitting quietly in your hand. So, if you come across one that's got a bright red-orange glow, crisp details in Lincoln's hair, and that tiny D below the date, stop and check carefully. Look under magnification for a ray-punched mint mark, a doubled Liberty, or a faint die crack running across the coin's surface. Those little imperfections can turn your penny into something truly extraordinary. And remember, collectors pay big money for history, condition, and rarity all rolled into one. The 1963 penny has all three, and when preserved this well, it transforms from ordinary pocket change into a little piece of American treasure. Moving on, let's talk about a coin that hides in plain sight, the 1981 Lincoln penny. Now, most people overlook this one completely. It doesn't seem ancient, it doesn't have the wheat reverse, and it's from the early 80s, a time most collectors don't immediately associate with big money. But that's exactly what makes this coin so dangerous to ignore. Because the truth is, some of these 1981 cents are worth far more than you'd ever expect. Let's start with what makes it special. The 1981 penny marks the final year the U.S. Mint struck Lincoln cents in nearly pure copper, that's 95% copper, before switching to the copper-plated zinc planchets in 1982. This transition changed everything. Collectors today know that these late copper issues have become increasingly desirable, especially as the years go by and fewer survive in high quality. Now, your coin, the one in fine condition, might not shine like new, but don't be fooled. Even circulated examples from 1981 can hide fascinating details, especially when it comes to die varieties and mint mark errors. The most sought after of all is the 1981 Type 2 proof, recognized by its sharply defined S mint mark, one that looks clear, polished, and elegant. That single design change has turned certain proof coins into five-figure treasures, but even standard business strikes can hold surprises. Some 1981D coins have been discovered with minor doubling on the obverse, especially around the date and the word liberty. These double die varieties, while subtle, can push a penny's value from just a cent to hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on condition. Now, let's talk numbers, because that's where things get wild. A standard 1981 penny in fine condition, like yours, generally trades for around 10 to 25 cents, a modest start, but move up the scale to extra fine or about uncirculated and values climb to $1 to $5. Then comes the leap, bright red. Uncirculated examples can easily bring $50 to $200. And if you're lucky enough to have a perfect Ms. 67 red copper strike, you're looking at as much as $7,000 to $12,000. And here's where the collector's heart start racing. Those rare proof examples from San Francisco, with that crisp Type 2S, one of these, in flawless PR70 condition, has sold for more than $40,000. That's right, a single 1981 penny, worth more than a diamond ring, because of one tiny design detail and a perfect strike. But why does this coin matter so much? Because 1981 was the end of an era. It represents the last breath of true copper in the Lincoln cent, a turning point in American coinage history. Every one of these coins tells the story of changing times, shifting metal values, and the slow fading of an American classic. If you've got one sitting in a jar, especially if it looks a little darker or heavier than newer pennies, it's worth checking. Take it under a magnifying glass. Look closely at the date, the D or S mint mark, and even the surface texture. If it weighs 3.11 grams, you're holding real copper, not the cheap zinc-plated kind made after 1982. And that makes it far more desirable to collectors and investors alike. The best part, many people still don't realize how collectible these pre-1982 copper cents are becoming. Entire rolls of them are being bought up and hoarded by savvy collectors. And the finest examples, especially those with rare die characteristics, are being locked away in private collections forever. So next time you see a 1981 penny, don't just pass it by. That humble cent could be the last of its kind, and in the right condition, it could easily be worth thousands. Now, let's turn our attention to a coin that quietly hides among billions of others, the 1975D Lincoln penny. Most people would look at this little coin and think, just another cent from the 70s. But those who know the secrets of the US Mint understand something far deeper. Beneath that dull copper surface lies one of the most fascinating mysteries of modern coinage, and a few rare survivors that have left collectors absolutely speechless. The year may 1975 seem ordinary, but it came right before one of the most monumental changes in US coin history, the bicentennial year. As the mint geared up for new designs and commemorations, errors began creeping in during late 1974 and 1975 production runs. Denver, known for high volume output, struck over 4.5 billion Lincoln cents that year. And with that sheer volume came the opportunity for rare mistakes. If you have a 1975D penny in fine condition, like the one we're looking at now, pay attention, because while the coin might look modest, there are hidden details that could make it far more valuable than you'd ever expect. Start with the surface. Even in fine condition, you can still see Lincoln's outline clearly, with the date 1975 sitting bold under his shoulder. The D mint mark, punched by hand back then, often shows slight doubling or misalignment, and that's exactly where the treasure hunt begins. Some 1975D pennies have been discovered with ray-punched mint marks, faint doubling on the word liberty, or tiny die cracks near Lincoln's coat. These small minting quirks are pure gold for collectors. Now, here's where things get really exciting. A 1975D penny with a strong double die obverse once shocked the auction world when it sold for over $35,000. Yes, $35,000 simply because of its rare minting error. Even coins with milder doubling or die breaks can fetch hundreds to several $1,000s, depending on how clearly the error shows and the overall condition. But even without any mint mistake, high-grade examples of the 1975D penny can be surprisingly valuable. In fine condition, like yours, these coins typically range from 10 cents to $1. But move up the ladder to extra fine or uncirculated red, and you're looking at $50 to $400. And if you somehow find a full red example graded Ms. 67 or higher, collectors have paid $6,000 to $10,000, sometimes even more in private sales. Why? Because 1975 was the end of an era. It was the last normal year before the mint started experimenting with massive design changes for the nation's 200th birthday. Every 1975 coin captures that still moment before transformation, before history took its next big step. That's what makes it so deeply collectible today. Now, here's the hidden gem. A few known 1975D Lincoln cents have been found struck on foreign planchets, blank metal discs meant for coins of other countries. These off-metal errors can weigh less, sound different when dropped, and even look slightly off-color. One such piece, struck on a planchet meant for a 10-cent Avo coin, sold for nearly $50,000 at auction. Imagine finding one of those in a box of old change. So before you dismiss that dull-looking penny from 1975, take a closer look. Check the edges, the lettering, and especially that tiny D. Use a magnifying glass and a good, like the kind of careful look that could turn a single cent into a life-changing discovery. And that's the beauty of coin collecting. It's not just about money. It's about history, luck, and the thrill of the unknown. You never really know what's hiding in your hands until you look close enough. And now, we've saved one of the most surprising coins for last, the 1971 Lincoln penny. At first glance, this coin looks completely ordinary, almost too ordinary. But don't let that fool you, because hidden among those billions of pennies from 1971 is one of the most legendary modern coin errors ever discovered. A mistake so bold, it turned an everyday cent into a jaw-dropping collector's treasure worth more than most people's cars. The story of the 1971 penny begins at the Philadelphia Mint, where the presses were running non-stop. Over 1.9 billion of these coins were struck, each one carrying Abraham Lincoln's familiar face on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. To most Americans, it was just another coin for vending machines and pocket change. But somewhere along the way, something extraordinary happened. One was engraved incorrectly, and when it struck the planchets, it left behind a dramatic doubled image on the front of the coin. The date, the letters in Liberty, even the phrase, "In God We Trust," all appear slightly duplicated, bold, clear, and unmistakable. It became known as the 1971 double die obverse, one of the most famous error coins in modern U.S. history. Now, here's where it gets exciting. The vast majority of 1971 pennies are worth face value, even in fine condition, about 1 cent. But if you happen to spot one of these double die varieties, your heart might skip a beat. Even worn, circulated examples have sold for $800 to $1,500. Move up to extra fine or about uncirculated, and values surpassed $5,000. And in pristine mint state red condition, graded by PCGs or NGC. These coins have shattered records, with top examples fetching more than $30,000. That's $30,000 for 1 penny. Even without the famous doubling, the 1971 penny still carries intrigue. It represents the early years of the Lincoln Memorial design, a time when the mint was perfecting new engraving techniques, adjusting press pressures, and struggling with die wear that often led to faint details and ghost-like textures. Every coin from that year tells a story of experimentation and subtle imperfection. If your 1971 penny is in fine condition, like this one, the wear is noticeable but gentle. Lincoln's portrait is still clear, the rim mostly intact, and the lettering legible. It may not seem like much, but these coins are now over 50 years old, and the number of well-preserved examples is dropping fast. For collectors who specialize in transitional era coins, even modest examples hold historical charm. But here's the real thrill: some 1971 cents were struck on foreign planchets or lightweight blanks intended for smaller denominations. These oddities, when authenticated, have sold for $10,000 to $45,000, depending on condition and metal content. That's right, the wrong piece of metal, at the right moment in the mint, can change everything. So how do you know if you've found something special? Hold the coin under a bright light. Look closely at the date, especially the 9 and 1. If you see a second shadow or a doubled outline, you might just be staring at a treasure. Then check the weight. A standard copper 1971 penny should weigh 3.11 grams. Anything lighter or off color deserves a second opinion. And here's the best part, these coins are still out there, hiding in old coffee cans, dusty jars, and forgotten drawers across America. Every time someone takes a closer look at an old penny, there's a tiny chance they'll uncover one of the great minting mistakes of our time. That's what makes coin collecting so powerful. It's not just about money. It's about discovery, history, and the thrill of realizing that a simple penny might hold a secret worth thousands. So before you roll up those jars of change or spend that handful of pennies, take one more look. Because, as you've seen today, from 1968 to 1971, ordinary coins can hide extraordinary value.